Yeah, thank you. And um, yeah, and totally agreed. I don't think we need to eat a ton of time. I just know that there are probably a few updates. So again, appreciate everybody's time. And I may actually give it back to Dale. And I know you had written a list of items to kind of go over and review as far as status and timeline. So I think, what we'll be doing today is just if y'all could give that update. I'm sure there'll be some Q&A based on that. And then, yeah, and then we can adjourn.
We do need to decide before we adjourn. We should be per the ordinance meeting once a month right now. And then we just need to decide as a committee if that's the route we want to take for the time being, with the caveat that can always add additional meetings, at the request of the committee and the chair. So just before we wrap up today, we'll make sure we take that motion.
Thanks, Kaylin.
Good. Well, let me provide everyone with just a really brief update what's going on with the 3x3, and then I just wanted to share with you some other things that are going on, not related to 3x3, but related to water and resilience. And you can ask questions about them if you like. So the process, the Corps of Engineers has looked at all the comments that came in. They have responded. They have made responses to them, put them in buckets because some of them were the same, some topical buckets. Whatever, those are done, and that will be part of the final report, how they have managed through those. They have told us that there were no comments that required a substantial revision to the TSP, just some things they needed to work through. So that was good. The realignment on both Union Pier Terminal and Columbus Terminal is fully underway, if not finished. We have seen the map. I saw Jordy shaking her head. We've seen the map too.
Yep.
For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Wagner Ball, the Discovery Report, we had suggested to move that line, the alignment, as close as possible to the land water edge, but without disturbing buildings and access to things like that. The Corps of Engineers in the port have worked to do that. Again, the exact longitude, latitude, location of the wall, that is something that gets, where it goes exactly inch by inch, is something that will be specified in PED. But the alignment is it's a much better alignment. The map of that will be ready, and a statement from the Corps of Engineers on that will be ready sometime in early 2022, so you will all be able to see it. Again, Kaylin, the mayor, and I have seen it because there were discussions between the city and the Corps of Engineers on this very important issue. So that's good. It does create a bit of a challenge, to be honest with you, with the Morrison Yard development and Johnson Street, because now the way the wall, the structure would come off of the top of the terminal, it would, as opposed to coming back quickly to Morrison and East Bay and Morrison, it would go down Johnson Street. This is, again, an optimized alignment, something to be finalized in PED. We have spoken with the Morrison Yards folks about how this alignment down Johnson Street would impact them. We think it needs substantial improvement in PED to get that wall, that structure outside or outboard of their facilities. And we will work to that. And we have already communicated that to the Army Corps of Engineers, just as there are a number of other issues with the alignment around Lockwood and, on Lockwood and Calhoun. This is something that we have to fix, and we'll be pursuing very diligently in PED to fix. So one of the benefits of the realignment, in addition to bringing the port within the line of protection, is the BCR on the project will increase. This is something we knew intuitively would happen, but the economic analysis shows that we are likely to have an 11.3 BCR, or 2 or 3 BCR. So that is a substantial improvement again there, and would help us with whatever we would try to pursue with Congress to get our authorization and appropriation. There was a meeting between the city and the mayor's office and the Army Corps of Engineers vertical team, which is the district, the division in Atlanta, and headquarters in Washington last week. This is called an agency decision milestone meeting. It is an internal process meeting that has to occur. And what it will do is simply it turns the optimized draft into what is called the recommended plan. That recommended plan is still, there's still analysis being done against it with the port realignment and the NEPA requirements and consultations required there. That occurred last week. Once again, I will state very clearly that the mayor explained some of the concerns we have, some of these alignment issues, some of the things we're clearly going to work on in PED if we get that far, things that need to be done. And there was no pushback or deep questioning from the Army Corps on those things. So that's important. And then coming up, one of the comments that we did make, a new comment that this was based upon conversations that we had, that I have had and others have had with other people who work through the Army Corps processes, is one of the things we will ask for is a system-wide risk assessment in PED. This is technical, but a risk assessment on each feature of the structure is, what are its risks of failure? And they looked at those separately, individually. So what is the risk of a failure of a particular failure of a particular segment? And what would those impacts be? But what they don't do, unless you ask for it, is do a system-wide risk assessment. And that is something which then looks at failure mechanisms and failure impacts of the entire system. So the whole thing put together. So are there compounding risks with the structure? And that is something that we will ask for. We've already signaled we will want that in PED. So it's just another level of assurance. So that was done in the ADM meeting. I did have a conversation in Columbia with folks there regarding the acquisition of federal funds through the Community Development Block Grant program to help the city meet its local match requirement in PED. Again, there are reasons for this. Again, the Citadel Medical District and the port are state affiliated properties. It makes sense that we should be able to get some of those federal funds to be able to meet our local match. That is the one federal program that does enable a local sponsor to meet its local match requirements under a federal project. So we've teed up those discussions. There is, in theory, money available in 2023 and 2024 for that through money that's already in the pipeline. So we will start to pursue that formally with the state if and when PED starts. So we can't ask for it until PED starts, but they know that we will seek that additional money to lower the city's financial exposure in PED. So that's wonderful. And then I just want to explain, I'll let you all ask questions, but there are other things underway here. We know about these, and I can answer questions if you have them. So the city budget that is up for second and I guess third review next week does have money for a water plan in it. If that gets approved, we will move down that procurement line next year. Already have had some conversations with some folks about that. I've talked with Herbert and with Lamsey, Caitlin and I have, and with some of you about a resilience plan for Rosemont. Just very clearly, I think this is doable. We would have to carve out some money from the water plan to do this and find some other resources to help make sure that is done. In my opinion, this is, I am not the decision maker on this, but in my opinion, I would hope we could get an actionable resilience plan for Rosemont, not a vision resilience plan, because I think we have, through the Sherwood report and other things, we have a vision. Let's get some recommendations for concrete actions, which could also then help inform whatever Rosemont would want to do in the PED process vis-a-vis their neighborhood. So I think that's important. The resilience plan is not something you're going to be able to do in 2 months. It may take a 6-month period to do that, but that is fine. That will still be finished before PED, if we get that far, would actually start. Just more broadly, not at all related to the 3x3. This, many of you may or may not know, but the city is involved with a number of pilot projects and national collaborations. One is something called the Community Flood Resilience Tool. So the Department of Homeland Security, the national federal agency, is piloting the development of a community flood risk planning tool in Charleston. It is being developed by Deltaris, the Dutch think tank. And what it'll do is it will take the very sophisticated hazard and impact models that inform a lot of risk modeling and planning processes for flood risk across communities. It'll take them, make them run much faster and give you outputs. You'll be able to tweak them and put certain measures into the tool, so that when you go to a community planning meeting and someone says, hey, well, what would 3 pumps over there mean? And you would have to draw a polygon around the area. Or what would elevation of 2 feet over there mean? Or what would sea level rise assumption of 3 feet or 1 feet? What would that mean for our hazards and risks and impacts in a particular area? You would be able to run that in a reasonably short period of time, in minutes. And often, most of you may know that when you run these models for true planning processes to make an engineering or planning decision upon, those models can take 3, 4, and sometimes 3 or 4 hours, and sometimes 3 or 4 days to run because of the sophistication needed. So this would take those models and make them available in a planning decision. So so the pilot here is very important because Charleston is the target. It will be citywide. The basins are mapped. Deltaris has imported a lot of information that from existing models that exist, existing models. And once this pilot is finished in July, August of 2022, and if it works, it will be shared with all other communities in the United States. So this will be a DHS project that we are piloting, which then will be shared with other communities. Have to be developed there to ingest all their models, but Charleston is once again showing some leadership. So that's exciting. And the Deltaris team was in town last week, showing us where they were, and it is pretty exciting. The city is also has been asked to be part of the Resilient Cities Network Climate Resilience Program. And this is 5 cities, so Houston, Boston, Chicago, New Orleans, and Charleston have been asked to participate with Resilient Cities Network and the Zurich Foundation to understand how environmental justice considerations can be brought into flood risk mitigation aspects. Houston and Boston are doing things already. They have money coming at them from the federal government for different disasters. So the goal here is to try to use some of that money for environmental justice, racial justice, social justice considerations. And these 5 cities are being asked to come together and work together to see how that can be done and what lessons can be learned. So that's an important thing that we're part of. The Natural Resources Defense Council, which is a well-known national nonprofit, environmental nonprofit. I saw Laura nodding her head here. It's they're a great group of folks. They have been looking at the very difficult challenges that federal policy puts on federal buyout and federal elevation challenges. So, you know, sometimes you think of the Church Creek Basin in the city, and FEMA bought out 32 homes there because of repetitive flood loss. And buyouts are becoming more and more common. The problem with buyouts is they take forever. It could be a 3-year process post-disaster. And that puts the homeowner and sometimes the neighborhood in a very difficult limbo position. We have some very specific cases here in Charleston right now that are in limbo because of this. And so NDRC they're trying to figure out what else can we do. And there's a consortium of other cities and other stakeholders, leading stakeholders involved with this. And we're trying to figure out ways, do we push changes to federal policy, or do we find out other ways to trigger an accelerated or improved buyout process when something bad has happened to repetitive loss properties. So this is important. We're part of that. Again, it's exciting. Nothing to report that's going to change Charleston in the next 6 months, but maybe Charleston can help inform those decisions going forward. And then, as you may or may not know, my last item, the city is Charleston has a budding, growing heat watch effort. So heat is one of the hazards that was identified in the vulnerability analysis. Is something that we need to pay attention to. There is a network here already, MUSC researchers there, Citadel, some volunteers. Dennis is shaking his head. This is underway. There was a lot of data collection last summer. Those results are almost ready for sharing. We hope within the Resilience Office to create some attention to that issue in 2022, because there's this thing happening within these agencies or these entities within the city, key stakeholders, and the city needs to be, as an entity, needs to be involved more with those decisions and those operations. So we hope to be able to bring this within the Resilience Office next year. Flood is still going to be a primary focus for us in the Resilience Office and the rest of the city, but we need to do more with heat too. And in the simplest ways, we know trees do well with water, right? They help with water management. It's a nature-based feature. Well, they do a lot of really good things with heat too. So how do we combine our investments in flood risk mitigation with the investments that can yield heat benefits or heat mitigation benefits for certainly disadvantaged communities, and there are a number of them. So that's my update.
Thank you very much, Dale. That's a lot. Obviously, a lot of great initiatives. I'm sure there'll be additional follow-up. I see Cash's note. That's great. I agree. If I tracked down the name of the vendor because they just left a bunch of limbs in the yard. If I remember it while we're talking, I'll pass it along. But they got an office in New York. You can just call them directly. Would totally agree. Anyway, but yeah, I guess I'll open up to the floor. And obviously, it could be probably are a lot of questions relative to the updates that Dale provided. So let's go through those. Dennis, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just good update. Dale, I had a call to meet with this on a phone call, Justice that you talked about, that group. And I think it's in December. Are others on this committee going to be involved with a, I just wonder if I'm the only one or who else is going to be in that group. Which project are you? So there's an environmental justice consideration within the Resilient Cities Network effort, and then there's the Heat Watch, which is also environmental justice focused. Oh, well, I'm already involved with the heat part, but the other first, the environmental justice, I just got a call a week ago, and I think it's scheduled for the 20th or something like December. I've got a phone call with him.
Okay, good. Let me know if you want to talk offline to see if we need to coordinate. Happy to do that.
Thank you.
Let's see, Susan, I see you have the hand up.
Hi again. I wanted to wish Laura all the best and to follow up and ask what the situation is with a replacement from either CCL or in some other, how that is going to work for this committee. I don't know whether anybody's thought about that yet.
Well, I'll go first because I have thought about it and clearly I've thought about that. And my thought was to have a conversation with the chair and Dale and Kaylin and strategize about what needs to be done and what the proper protocols are.
Okay, great, because I think we need that voice. as
Yeah,
we-
well, we certainly want to be able to continue to provide input and be helpful to the process.
Terrific. Thank you. Much, much good luck. I had a second question. I think we gather that the council likely will not vote on the 3x3 project until next month. Do we have any more information about that?
No updates. We need to wait for the Corps of Engineers to give us the update on what they've been doing. And once they do, and we anticipate that in early 2022, the year has flown by. Early 2022, we will then work with council, the mayor and the council will work together to figure out how to proceed on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everybody. Any additional questions? And actually, I'll see Councilmember Waring and Seekings are there. On our last address to council, I realized that just in the moment, I forgot to bring all of as obviously members of the committee. So anyway, I just wanted to A, apologize for that, and B, thank y'all very much for being here with us.
Well, you're welcome. I see Keith is there too. We did announce broadly that you had undertaken probably the hardest civilian job in the history of Charleston, if the committee wasn't watching. So, and I do believe that to be true. I mean, what you've done has been heroic. And I think your presentation in front of council was appropriate. And you sort of saw the line of questioning. There'll be some more. And Susan, I think Dale is right. As soon as we get whatever the Corps is doing, their final report, you'll see this on a council agenda very quickly. I mean, within a couple of weeks. I don't think it'll take a long time because I know the Corps wants an answer. And frankly, we want to get a vote out and see where this is all going because it's kind of lingering out there at this point. So the committee's made its recommendations. We're waiting on the Corps. Dale is in place. So I suspect the second meeting in January, the first meeting in February is when you'll see a vote.
Do you think there's anything this committee should be doing in the meantime with regard to that?
I don't. I think that the chairman has given his report to council and we'll just see what the Corps does. I mean, it may be, I don't know, that once the Corps' next iteration comes out publicly, if this committee has a meeting and has something to say about it, it may be worthwhile the chairman reporting that back or Dale reporting that back. But for now, I think with the holidays coming up, with us taking up the budget. And by the way, Dale mentioned in his comments that we have in the budget the $500,000 for the water plan study. That is going to pass. I mean, the budget passed first reading 11-1. The one vote against it was me, and it had nothing to do with that water plan, by the way. It was because there's a $3 million tax increase. So I don't see any problem with that being funded. And Dale and his team can get to work on it with the procurement pretty quickly. So that's a long answer to, I don't think there's much to do between now and when the Corps comes out with whatever it is that they're going to come out with. And I think Dale told us he thought maybe that would be January. We're all like you all waiting.
Regarding the water plan, I have developed a one pager that I had to share, where I shared it with council because there were questions, what is a water plan? I forget if I have shared that with everyone on this committee. I don't know what I've done. So I apologize. That happens sometimes, but if you need me to reshare it with you, I'm happy to do it. Okay.
Do you have a timeline on that? When you would, once the money is allegedly there, how long it'll take to procure and then set it in motion?
So again, there's a city procurement process and culture that I don't know enough about yet. I've been on the other side of it a couple of times. I know it takes some time. I imagine that it's going to take 3 months once the city council approves this to get it through the procurement to get something on the street, 2 months, and then have a 30-day response time, analyze it, and then work with whatever the procurement review team is to select a consultant and team. And then they would start that, given what we're asking, I do think you wouldn't start this you wouldn't be able to start this really until May or June. Okay, just the consultant's hired and is knows where the bathrooms are, as they say, right? Knows. And then I still think it's a 9-month at a minimum process, 6 to 9 months, 6 months to 12 years. It depends on exactly, what the gap analysis is going to show, because the gap analysis is going to open our eyes to things that maybe we need, which would be then, a second task order or third task order within the process. So, I don't think you have a water plan until Q1 of 2023 at the earliest. It takes time. So the Dutch dialogues took a year to prepare. AECOM is working on a stormwater thing, and that's 2 or 3 years old. These things just take a long time. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Hey, Cash, I see you with your hand up there.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I have a budget question for Councilman Seekings or Waring. Is the water plan funded through ARPA monies, or is that from city revenues?
It's in a part of our budget through city revenues. It's in the general fund money.
Okay.
I mean, it's
all
in
right.
our regular budget. So it comes out of all the general revenues from the city.
Thank you.
Morning. You apologized to us, Mr. Chairman. When we were given all the raises, we meant it. I mean, this committee's done a wonderful job. You've led a very difficult effort. And all councilmen Seeking, we knew we were going to have our chance to debate this thing one way or the other. But as I've thought about it after your presentation, one thing about this effort has just been a tremendous effort, obviously initiated by the mayor and the team he's put together. But I would hope, it doesn't matter which way it goes. Obviously, if the vote is positive, then it will continue. But if the vote is a negative vote, I would hope, regardless, that this committee stays together, because that means it would take a community effort to continue something that's solely needed. To make it an athletic contest, and we lost by 1 vote or we won by 1 vote would be a travesty, in my opinion. Because that leads to nothing being done. On the other side, this may even come down to whoever wins that election on Daniel Island, which no one knows right now. And that's the part that I've reflected on, the closeness of it, that 11-1 vote, and you may as well say it was a unanimous vote. I mean, that was the issue that Mike voted against. I think he would say the rest of the remainder of the budget, he probably was, 99% in the approval for. That said, that's the kind of effort we need on surge protection and drainage. And that shouldn't be a divided vote, with a photo finish at the finish line. I think that, so how do we get beyond that? Maybe over the Christmas holiday between now and the new year, we on this committee, I'm including all of you all, including Dale as well, know more about this process now than probably most in the city. So maybe we can reflect on how can we make it better in 2022 and beyond. But I know that's what I'm gonna be doing, between now and then. Dale and I hadn't had a chance to speak, and Dale, I promise you I'll get with you next week, we will. But in 1984, and I understand a water study is different than the drainage plan. The city did a drainage plan, and it discovered a huge amount of problems. I would say probably 80% of those problems hadn't been fixed. And I was talking to Ross Appel a couple of months ago now, and I was just brought up 1984 study. And he said, wow, that's when I was born. I mean, we got people who have been born who, when the study came out, that now occupy a seat on council, I actually think we got two. And those problems that were illuminated hadn't been fixed. Obviously, we got to have a better system than that. So every time I hear about study, my mind goes back to Washington, Columbia, or even Washington, D.C. A lot of times, elected officials, let's call them politicians, when some are not in agreement with something, you know what they do? They study it. They send it to a committee and they study it, especially if it's something that would make them unpopular to be against. Just so let's study it. And I'm fighting the feeling that that's not happening to us right now. Because when the study comes back, how do we pay for it? And I don't see the work being done on it. So I do believe the answer is out in our community, and it's not all within the 13 minds that have votes around council. Some of our better ideas. I know as a council person, just because you won an election doesn't mean you're all knowing. I know you all know that, but we get some of our better ideas from citizens, you know, like Susan or Cashin or Jordy or Kevin. You know, I'm not slighting the rest of you all. This is, you know, Herbert, you've done a great job on this committee, bringing voice to the unheard. So we get some of our better answers, believe it or not, our better strategies and times from our community. So I hope between now and then, this has been a good effort. I'd say a very good effort. How can we make it better? Because again, it'd be a travesty to walk away from this with some people grumbling because they didn't go their way. Because at the end of the day, that superstorm is out there and those rain bombs will continue to come. And obviously sunny day flooding will be a part of our lives if we don't come up with a comprehensive strategy. But you all did a good job. I've been glad to be hanging with y'all. You've allowed us to hang and didn't us run Mike and myself off. But anyway, so thanks for the time. You guys, I wish you all could have looked at the work yourselves. And it's hard to be objective about yourself, but it's not, we're not making that up. Mike, you tell me, maybe a short-term rental had something close to this from a volunteer committee, but this has been, I think, one of the best efforts from citizens coming together, trying to reach for the best solution, not only for ourselves, but the next generations to come. I hope we don't lose this going into 22, 23 and beyond. So Merry Christmas to everybody.
Likewise, thank y'all, council members, and we greatly appreciate y'all and y'all's time and efforts and contributions. Obviously, wouldn't have been, wouldn't have gotten where we are without having y'all's insight on every facet. So we certainly appreciate y'all. So Susan, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, I'm going to follow Keith and thank him for all those good words and that marvelous suggestion that if by some stroke of luck or non-luck, the Army Corps does not get its approval, that we do continue as a committee. I don't want this to sound like we're negative on that. My hope is that it gets approved for PED. And I'm saying that publicly for the first time, but I would like to continue this I would like to see this committee continue no matter what. It had been my hope a long time ago that we would have a citizens committee on flooding. And it came about as a result of the Army Corps project, but this city needs a committee on flooding. And, however things go, we're going to have flooding. So I don't know whether to put that in the form of a motion or just put it out there and know that that's something that at least some of us would like to continue to do. Does that fly with anybody?
Thank you, Susan.
If I could make one reflection on that, I think citizen participation and transparency is just essential. So again, Haygood mentioned it, but I've enjoyed engaging with you. If we were to add one other type of person to this committee, would be a good idea to add a technical person. And there's a number of folks local who are really good technical about H&H stuff, so hydraulics and hydrology stuff, considerations, and that may be adding someone like that if we can find that person who's willing to commit the time, because it is not insubstantial what is asked. That may improve the sparring, the debate, the engagement, the whatever the decision making within the community. So I would just add that as a consideration for the chairman and the rest of the members.
Maybe that's worth visiting when Laura, when we all catch up on just process and how that works with getting you whatever. I don't want to use the word substitution because I don't know that it does it justice, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, that sounds good. Why don't I follow up with you all to try to set something up and we can have a conversation about it?
Great, thanks. Herbert, I see you with your hand up.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and everybody else. Question: does this committee, in representing the different communities, will we have any input as to the steering committee for the water plan?
Under the current ordinance, it's out there. I don't think that's a specific enumeration just because it wasn't contemplated when this committee was formed, but it doesn't mean that this committee shouldn't have some input into that. We certainly have time to sort of debate that at council or either have that just as a mandate from the mayor. So good suggestion, Keith. We can just bring that up with the mayor and see what council wants to do with that.
One of the things, good question, Herbert. One of the things on the other side, there's some missing parts to this committee, in particular from a regional approach. Somebody from the Regional Development Alliance, I think, needs to have a say in this. Somebody from the Council of Governments needs to have a say in this. I think somebody from County Council, especially since we're going and asking them for 25 million. I mean, should they not have a voice in this? Somebody from the CEO roundtable, obviously the business community should have a say. I mean, the closest part of the business community was Jordy here. Obviously, Jordy, the number one or number two income producer to the state of South Carolina. There are a lot of some parts here now. And this is almost 180 degrees in another direction. Some of you all may be familiar with Cajun. It's the Charleston Area Justice Ministry. And it's a group of volunteers from enough 30 some odd 5 churches around the area that I don't know, maybe 10 years ago came up and took on hard issues. One was the expulsion rate of African-American students through the school districts. They got engaged with that and really changed the process. That's no longer the problem as it once was. From school pipeline to jail. We had police officers in school, they arrest students, and they end up in the penal system. There was a better system than that. But it took a volunteer group, one appointed by the mayor, one appointed by some state senator or representative, that came together. They actually approached us and created, Mike is here, a lot of controversy, but the racial bias in policing in our police department, and created an unbiased study, as far as unbiased studies can be done, that pointed out, I don't know, less than 50, but 46, 48 crucial problems we need to fix in our police department. And we're going about the business of getting that done. But that was outside push that created that change. And I think this stormwater surge and this water study, or basically a comprehensive drainage plan, is on that is vital. Okay. When we look on TV and you see a policeman shoot a person, an unarmed person running away from you in the middle of the back and kills them in front of our TV, that can't be accepted policy. It took outside influence, and now even North Charleston is trying to has hired the very same company to try and improve their police department. Well, can you imagine if we had that kind of effect with drainage and stormwater surge? From a groundswell of stakeholders, they're saying we need, as Dale has said, and, not one or the other. Because the and, you get me. Dividing a community, you lose me. I'll tell you that right now. So we have a water problem, and this process has gotten, that's the praise and salutation. We've had a water problem for decades, but it's finally coming to conclusion. And I'm just saying, on the other side, how do we make it better? And I don't think that necessarily a politician is going to appoint all the answers. Matter of fact, I'd be shocked if a politician would be able to appoint all the stakeholders to have a comprehensive answer. So that's the kind of broadness, because when it comes from the outside, right now, we're going to vote on, it's a small issue, the potential of taxing business people to improve King Street. That idea didn't come from the mayor or council. It pretty much came from the business community coming forward to us. Y'all voices have been independent. Independent voices on this effort, storm surge and drainage, can bring about change. So, the political answers frustrate me because at the end of the day, we all live with this water together, and we all know it's getting worse. But bringing this subject to bear, I can't tell you how much praises and salutation I give to anybody who brought this forward, because it was a water cooler discussion. Now it's been, I think you can go from one end of the city to the other, or one end of pretty much county to the other. And they know we need to do something. Or I've heard something about this stormwater surge or drainage problem. So that's the piece. The part about an architect constructing something, I bet it's more powerful if it comes from the outside. And this has been a powerful effort. But I actually believe some of those entities I spoke of, again, the CEO Roundtable, the Regional Development Alliance, which recruits business into this region. That's how the new cores got here. That's how that's how Boeing got here through those efforts. County Council, somebody from the state. We're going to ask the state for $100 million. There's not a voice besides State Post Authority around this table. I would say around this effort, let me put it like that. I think those are huge omissions. So we're good, but we got to be great to get this comprehensive effort going forward. I mean, we're not trying to get a bronze medal on this. We're trying to get a gold medal. So, Kevin speaking up about the, the aquarium and its efforts. I got some grandkids that absolutely love those turtles over there, and I got to tell you, if something happens at that aquarium with a stormwater surge, I got to answer my grandkids. So that's what I'm talking about. I mean, and I think at this point there shouldn't be any holding back. In other words, because it's not politically correct to say this or say that. It's politically correct to give enormous credit to pulling this together, because it was all fragmented prior to it. But on the other side, we can be better. Are we going to be the example on the East Coast for the rest of the coastal communities? I don't know. The General Assembly basically is run by people from small communities. Once you leave, Charleston, Columbia, Greenville, maybe Spartanburg. We got 46 counties, but you take out a half a dozen of them, the rest of them are rural counties. And they kind of run the general assembly. God bless him, Senator Leatherman. He wasn't from a big metropolitan area. He was the most powerful guy up there. He was from Florence. So if we don't get some of those people on board, some of these smaller people who realize the state has a problem with flooding, and stormwater surge to protect, our tourism industry, which is what the #1 income producer. How do we're not going to get them on board with 12 or 13 people saying we really support this $100 million effort out the city from the state to help pay for this. So that's the kind of inclusiveness and frankly power that I think we can move forward with. I've had enough of my say. I'm gonna listen to the rest of y'all for the rest of the meeting.
No, that's super helpful. It's a very y'all see the practicality and how these things actually get done. We can talk about it, to your point, in concept as much as we want, but what you're talking about is, I think, a lot more, or maybe just as relevant, which is, hey, this is an effort. How does this effort actually get accomplished in real life, and how does it get funded? So certainly, I think the point there is very well taken. Dale, I guess you probably have a follow-up comment to that. So I see why don't you go for it?
So I agree. These suggestions that Councilman Waring just made about expanding the committee and getting, again, I've spoken with folks from some of these organizations you just mentioned already. And so I think getting their input, their leadership, their push, their energy, whatever, into this committee would be wonderful. I think we have to figure out when the right time for that is. And so, I think, if the city, whatever the city decides to do, with or without the Army Corps of Engineers, that's going to determine who's going to come into this. Be aware that I have been talking with folks upstate. I'm just a city staffer. I'm not an elected person, so I don't have the authority.
Dale, excuse me for cutting across, but you just said whatever the city decides to do. See, that's one of the issues. One of the problems is this water problem isn't just the city of Charleston's problem alone. And when the city decides what to do, you're offending some of the stakeholders that should be a part of this process. For example, a number of county council members read in the newspaper about the $25 million potential request coming from them. And the reason I know that is because I got calls from 3, it ain't but 9 county councilmen. I got calls from 3 of them saying, what is this? So a single entity determining that time for an inclusive effort, the unintended consequence is you offend those stakeholders, and they have the actual vote to say yay or nay on whether you get the money. So that's the portion where these regional efforts, those stakeholders' voices are just as important as yours, mine, the mayor's, Mike, Councilor Jackson's listening in, Susan.
Yeah.
That's the part that I think we run the risk of doing by offending stakeholders, and they become predetermined that they are being shut out, but yet asking to fund an effort.
So let me respond to that. So I agree 100% with what you just said. I do, and I would, love to talk with you one-on-one like we suggested we would. I was in Columbia 2 weeks ago, and I briefed the State Resilience Office on what Charleston was doing across a number of its flood problems, not just the surge issue, but the Church Creek issue, what's been done with the comp plan, what else has gone on. They're deeply impressed. The State Resilience Office and the State Resilience Advisory Committee they're impressed with what is going on in Charleston. And I'm trying to like establish the relationship between the city and the state. So this is something that I think is right in line with what you're suggesting. The state resilience office asked me to sit on one of their subcommittees as they develop the state resilience plan, which will create more interaction between us. So that's good. We have a briefing this afternoon with the Charleston County Resilience Office about what we're doing on a number of things, including the surge issue, but on a number of things. So I agree 100% with you that we need to do more of this. I am doing my best to make this part of my job.
So
There
Dan,
are-
let me wrap this up. I think you're doing exemplary work. But when we needed, again, you heard me say this before, when we needed to replace the Ravenel Bridge, Mayor Riley, Mayor Summy, the chairman of county council at the time, Barrett Larimore, and the mayor of Mount Pleasant came together. That's what's missing. I have yet to see Mayor, and if he's done it, I'll apologize, but I'm not familiar with it. I haven't seen where Mayor Tecklenburg has reached out to Mayor Summy or the chairman of county council. Maybe he reached out to the mayor of Mount Pleasant. I just don't know. But I know one thing, the public hadn't seen that unity, okay? That's how you the support for the actual votes to appropriate the money, okay, on the county and the state level. Believe me, Dale, I think you, as a matter of fact, I think I tell you, you need to get a little rest and R&R. But I still say that please take advantage of the holidays. Don't work yourself too hard. But without that comprehension, and say, why hadn't that happened? I will speak to the mayor about that because I think he's done a good job bringing this subject to bear. But a singular effort on tourism is, again, the number one industry in the state of South Carolina. So we got from Hilton Head, from Myrtle Beach all the way down to Hilton Head, okay? Where's the unification there? In other words, I don't know that we have an ongoing dialogue with the mayor of Hilton Head or the powers that be up in Myrtle Beach. It's Charleston, firing this shot over at Fort Sumter alone. That might be a bad example, but anyway. But so it is not you. You again. I wish we could multiply you. Okay, that has to be done, or it's going to be those people down in Charleston are trying to do that. I don't know whether that's a winning strategy for we the people in Charleston, or we the people in Charleston County, or we the people in the Tri-County area. So it shouldn't be, I don't know what they're doing down there in Charleston when it comes to somebody else who shares the same problem. The mayor of James Island, we have, the sword has been put away between the city of Charleston and James Island. James Island has the town of James Island has a concern, and they don't have any money, But I tell you what, their voice to their state representative over there and the senator that represent those areas will make a difference when time comes to cast a vote in Columbia. But again, y'all get my drift. I promise not to talk anymore. So I said that the last time and I broke in. But Dale, like I said, I hope you're not seeing this as being pointed at you. It is not you, believe me. It should be. Many of us was in this community when you say, well, how did the school board raise $1.4 billion for new schools when John Graham Altman was saying no new taxes? And that's exactly what happened. This area raised $1.4 billion to replace almost, I don't know, it'd be hard pressed to find a dilapidated school in Charleston County. It goes from Georgetown down to Eddystone. But a unified effort did that. So that's the piece that I'm talking about. Those guys from Walhalla up in up around Clemson. I mean, what do they? How do you know what they feel about drainage down here? You know, they look at it like that's not our problem. But if you look at it from a state tourism standpoint, well, yeah, it is. Okay.
Thank you, Councilman Waring. That's again, that's practical. Yeah, very practical way to look at it, and certainly need to get buy-in around this effort, particularly given the dollar amount contributions. Well, and I know there's a couple follow-up items I saw in the chat menu for items to go over. Switching gears a little bit, I do think it's until we get is Hagan's opinion. Obviously, we'll all need to just discuss it, and to Kalen's point earlier, take a vote on it. But I think we're fine at this point, following the ordinance with monthly meetings, except in the event that we need to call a meeting to happen more regularly. In the event there's new information or a reason to do so. So anyway, I just want to open that up for discussion, and then post discussion, we can go ahead and take a vote for it. So I don't know if anybody has any comments or thoughts there. So basically it would just be, hey, we go to monthly meetings, except in the event there's something that we need to, some specific event we need to meet on in the near term, which to Councilmember Seeking's point could come very quickly given the pending council discussion. I'll just open that up to the floor in case anybody has any comments or thoughts or agreement or disagreement on that front.
Well, I agree with the monthly meetings, as you said, Hagan, so I'd make a motion for that if that's what you're looking for.
Sure. So I'll go ahead and motion to go for to go to monthly meetings per the ordinance. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. All right, so moved. So Kayla, I think does that accomplish what we need to get accomplished with regards to the meeting item?
Yep, and going off of our kind of periodic every other biweekly meeting, we would be looking at January 12th potentially as our next meeting, but just stay tuned for emails and calendar invites from me on that front.
Thank you, Jory. I see your note. Merry Christmas, happy holidays to everybody. Certainly appreciate that. All right, well, great. Until next time, I know that there'll be some email traffic and a couple follow-up items. Yeah, look forward to seeing y'all hopefully sooner, but at the very least in the new year.
Thank you.
Thank
Happy
you.
New Year.
Happy
Happy
holidays.
holidays.
Good. Bye, everybody.